welcome. I better do this before the music starts again. I better do it. There we go. See that?
There we go. Welcome, one and all.
Welcome back to the Sports Porch Philadelphia. It's been a few weeks, Robert.
It has been a few weeks. Yep,
Yeah,
getting over the depression from the Eagles' epic collapse, the debacle that was. And all you can do is, try to move forward, get into TV shows and movies.
Yeah. Well, I for those of you who are watching or listening and you don't realize this, I have to apologize for my co-host here because he really kind of takes it to heart. When the Eagles aren't doing well, he gets so depressed that he literally can't even talk about it sometimes. Isn't that true, Schwaber?
Actually, I would say no, that is not true. I feel down like the day of the game when it's a bad game, but pretty much by the next day I've recovered. Now that's much different than when I was growing up, like let's say in my teens and early 20s. It could ruin a week for me back in those days.
I remember that well. Although I will say that last year after the Eagles lost the Super Bowl, there was like a 2-week blackout. Like you wanted no part of any conversation about pretty much about sports in general.
Yeah, I mean that was
it's okay. It's a safe place, Mark.
I mean that was a particularly tough loss. I mean, that's one of those things where, if you lose 45-0, you can move on. But when you feel like you should have won the game, it's just really hard to accept.
But don't you feel like you should have won every game?
No.
So I
do not feel like they should have won the Bucs game. No.
Okay. Well, yeah, that was tough. So
they were
before we get started here. Before we get started here, I want to remind everybody you're watching the Sports Porch Philadelphia. We're all over the world on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, on LinkedIn, and of course, right after the show, we drop the podcast, the Sports Porch Philadelphia, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. And I would encourage you, please subscribe, leave us a review. We would really love that. The way we handle this show is one page at a time, because at one point in Mark's fledgling super broadcaster, sportscaster career, he actually sent me notes, which he never sends me anymore. But they were 4 pages worth. So we decided we're going to do this in pages. So page 1 this week, of course.
It's kind of like going back to a throwback of the days when there were newspapers.
Your notes were newspaper-ish, and then I actually took notes too. So page 1 is the Eagles, but I you know what? I just pulled up something online here that I did not know, and you may have known it.
Okay.
But it's news to me. So I'm going to go there first, and then we can go down the road, whatever you want to talk about.
Are you saying this is breaking news?
No, it's not breaking because it's 6 hours old. But Ron Rivera to interview for the Eagles defensive coordinator job.
Riverboat Ron, bring him home. Bring him home. Bring him home.
You think so? Did he play for the Eagles? I know he played for the Bears.
He didn't. I don't think he played for the Eagles, but he was the linebacker coach under Jim Johnson on Andy Reid's staff.
Okay, all right. So he said, right. That's right. So he's been with the Eagles.
And I'm actually going to give you a little bit of insider information, which I heard today, which I did not know.
Okay.
Jeffrey Lurie actually considers Ron Rivera to be a very good friend, as Lurie's wife and Ron Rivera's wife are like best buddies.
Oh, okay.
So some interesting stuff that came out. Number one is that Ron Rivera did come out about a week ago and said that he is willing to take a step back and be a defensive coordinator again. That's
I don't know anybody who would hire him as a head coach, to be honest with you.
Probably,
all due respect,
not.
But not right now, right?
Probably not. But I looked into it just because he's a well-respected guy. One thing I did not know though was the last time, like before he got a head coaching job, Who do you coach first? Who was he the head coach? Oh, the
Carolina.
Carolina Panthers, and
Carolina.
they took Cam Newton to the Super Bowl. That's right.
Right.
Um, I looked at his last stint as a defensive coordinator
Mm-hmm.
for taking that job, and it was
Mm-hmm.
with the San Diego Chargers at the time. They were still San Diego at that time, and
Right.
he actually had the number one defense in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm guessing that this guy knows defense pretty well. One thing that would be huge, I mean, I would just love to have a guy in there whose specialty is linebackers because my
Mm-hmm.
God, we can't do anything at the linebacker position, and that needs to drastically change. I mean,
Right.
if you looked at the playoff games this weekend, I mean, look at the linebackers on the 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens, Greenlaw, you know, um, Patrick Queen,
Fred
Roquan
Warner.
Smith, Fred
Roquan
Warner,
Smith. Right.
you know, so yeah, I'd be excited about him. They're also looking at Mike Caldwell, who was just let go as the DC of the Jaguars, but obviously the year before he had a good year with the Jaguars. He also is a former Eagle player
Right.
and coach.
Yeah. For the
Um,
Colts. Wasn't he the Colts head coach?
yes. So
Yeah.
so just to get everybody up to speed here. What looks like is going to happen is that Sirianni is going to retain his job. There's going to be a press conference with Sirianni and Howie Roseman on Wednesday, and it's expected that they're going to announce that Sirianni will be back, and that they are going to be replacing the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator. Now, the defensive coordinator has been let go, and Matt Patricia. He was not under contract, but they said that he is going to pursue other opportunities, meaning he's out. And for the offensive coordinator, they just say that Brian Johnson's he's not going to be back, but they're not firing him yet because he's got 3 head coaching positions that he's interviewing for, so they don't want to fire him, and it kind of makes it not look so good for him.
Right.
But and so on the offensive coordinator side, kind of interesting. Jim Bob Cooter could be in play. Now that's the best name in all of football. You know that. That.
It's either the best or the worst, depending on what
Right,
day it is. But yeah,
right.
it's a funny name, that's for sure.
Right. So anyway, I mean,
Which
bottom line.
reminds me, I was watching yesterday while we were watching the divisional games.
Mhm.
I was flicking back and forth between Kansas City Bills, and then when a commercial came on, I would flip it over to, I don't remember if it was BBC America or whatever, and they were playing Smokey and the Bandit, and Jim Bob Cooter would have fit in perfectly there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now, I mean, look, I don't know how good or bad Jim Bob Cooter is, but I do know he's been an offensive coordinator before. He's actually currently an offensive coordinator. The reason why he would do a lateral move, because he's the offensive coordinator for the Colts, is because Shane Steichen, formerly Eagles offensive coordinator, calls the plays. So he would be coming here at a lateral move because he would be calling the plays.
And Amy May is joining us, and she's saying that Matt Canada is.
Oh boy, no, thank you,Amy May. No,
I don't know. Change of scenery, different colors. You might not get out of Philly alive though. But hey.
But and also too, in another interesting name is Wink Martindale is interviewing as well.
Yes.
And I don't know. The thing about Wink Martindale, he's a big time blitzer.
Yeah.
But
easy, right.
But apparently, like the Eagles offensive linemen speak really highly of him. Like they say, like this guy really puts together blitz packages that are very difficult to figure out. So,
well, you got to think that was it and the answer is obviously they feel it's the coordinator, but is it the coordinator or the talent?
Right.
2 years ago,
sure,
the Eagles had a great front four and great linebackers. This year,
well, okay, linebackers.
Right.
But they were better. They were better than this year for sure.
I'll tell you what, though, the NFL has become a linebacker-oriented defensive league because
I think it is linebackers,
the middle stuff. Yeah,
linebacker safeties over the middle. Everybody's got a tight end that could be a Pro Bowler nowadays, it seems.
Yes, yes, except the
You know,
Commanders
yeah.
and the
So
Steelers.
right, right. So, here's my stance on it. First off, the defensive coordinator is the most important because not only do you need a new coordinator, you probably need to replace about half of the defense. Namely being two linebackers, possibly two safeties, a corner, something like that. Um, and I really think like the reason why I think like Riverboat Ron would be the right guy is because you kind of need a guy like in the Eagles case here. This guy is like you leave him alone. Like he's the head coach of the defense. You know what I mean? The head coach of the defense.
Much better. Thank you.
And so I think he fits that really well. I also think, Wink Martindale is that kind of guy too. He kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of like a Buddy Ryan a little bit. You know what I mean?
Really?
Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea of this, like, Mike Caldwell is just kind of like, I don't know, an even-tempered guy. I want somebody who's tough, and is going to bring that toughness in. But let's circle back though. So we'll see who these coordinators end up being. But let's circle back to what are your thoughts, and I'll give you mine. Do you or do you not think Nick Sirianni should be back? I will preface it by 3 years as a head coach, 3 winning seasons, 3 trips to the playoffs, and a Super Bowl berth came within seconds of winning it. What do you think?
100% he should be back. I don't even hesitate on that. And I'm not, I'm looking at it through unbiased eyes. I'm saying that the previous coach, Peterson, he lost the team and him and the owner didn't get along in the end. They brought Sirianni in, and my standard operating go-to whenever there is a head coaching change, and it has been for many, many years, is that when you have a head coaching change, the best thing you can hope for the first year of a head coach, the best thing is to go 500. Now we know with the schedule now, 500 is hard because you'd have to have a tie. Of course, the Steelers achieve that, but so to bring a new head coach in with a new staff and a rookie quarterback who had struggled, obviously had the talent, but had struggled. And then to turn that into a playoff game, a playoff year, a Super Bowl losing, but a Super Bowl year, and then another playoff year, you can't walk away from that. And I don't think that the issue this year was Nick Sirianni. I don't think it was that at all. I think he came in and Steve chimes in here on Facebook. Yes, Sirianni, who would be better? I think Sirianni came in and he had his coordinators, and then this year, you had, offensive and defensive coordinator. They're second to the top basically. So you've got strong personalities, you've got maybe similar philosophies, but different ways of doing things, and it just takes a little while to mesh. It's rare that you bring in somebody in the position of a coordinator or assistant head coach, and they're responsible for running the offense, and you're going to be on the same page, or you're going to work together, and you have to have the players buy into it. So I'm not even all that certain that getting rid of the coordinators is absolutely what you have to do. I think there's a lack of patience in today's society, not to go on a tangent, but that translates into today's NFL. The players coming out of college, the science of the sports and the health of the athletes is it's greater than it's ever been. So as fans, we lose patience very, very quickly. So yes, the Eagles collapsed at the end of the year. I personally think, this is just what I think, that the Eagles, they lost some key pieces on defense. The coordinator was struggling to figure out who fit what piece of that puzzle. It showed on the field. They were second to last in the NFC East in giving up points. They gave up 428 points. The Commanders gave up 518. So, and Dallas only gave up 315. Who cares about the Giants? So, I really, really think that Sirianni deserves another year without a doubt.
Okay, well, let me take a different look at it for you. Okay.
Well, if you didn't, we'd be done with this conversation.
We sure
And
would.
we weren't
Show's
done with
over. Show's over, folks. Park's closed.
Moose out front, sure told you.
Right. So, okay. Look, you can make all these arguments as to why he should be there. You're right. Continuity is important. 3 winning seasons. I mean, trip to the Super Bowl. How do you can that, coach? Well, I'll tell you how.
Well, you just show them the door. You just say, "There's the door right there."
Right. So here's the problem. It was an epic collapse. There was no team ever that had a 10-1 start, and there's a lot of them. I don't know how many, but I'm sure there's plenty of them. No team ever with 10 starts didn't get to 12 wins, and they had an extra game now because now we have 17 games. Okay, so that is pretty epic. Now, look, losing big to the 49ers and to the Cowboys, understandable. But, losing to the likes of, garbage teams like the Cardinals and the Giants and the Seahawks. Now, maybe the Seahawks are average. Maybe the Cardinals with Kyler Murray are average. But still, if you're a 10-1 team, you should be able to beat those teams.
Right.
So, yes, Steve, tuning in a little late, but yes, we are pro Riverboat Ron. Now, so first of all, you have an epic collapse, okay? So now, what are some of the things that led to the epic collapse? Well, one of the things that led to it was a switch of Sean Desai to Matt Patricia at defensive coordinator, in which the defense got substantially worse.
Yeah.
Okay. So a question was that Sirianni's move, or was that Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman's move? Now, I'll be honest with you. I think it was probably Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie. Okay, because we got blown out by the two teams we were thinking we'd have to compete with to get to the Super Bowl, and I think they made the move. Right now, that being said, though, I think that's a guess. I got to sit here and I got to say, I got to take Sirianni at his word when he says that it was his choice. Okay. So
they all fall on their sword.
I know. But if he says it's his choice, okay, then I gotta put blame on him for it. Okay. And if it wasn't his choice, then he should have said, "Hey guys, do you realize how colossal of a mistake this could be, making this change at this point of the season?" Because they didn't just run Sean Desai's defense. They completely changed everything for Matt Patricia's defense. And they had their best player, Hassan Reddick, dropping in a coverage half the game.
Yeah.
Okay. So they really weren't playing smart football. Now, here's the other thing. The other thing is that the offense, which still was like a top 10 offense in the league, they really, they took a step back and they were just okay, the last few weeks of the season. And, so part of that is, there are some people saying that, maybe Jalen Hurts was a little more hurt than people believe or knew. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also, the theory that there's some stuff coming out now that, Hurts and the OC, weren't seeing eye to eye, and so Hurts was audibling more, and maybe he didn't do as good of a job with the audibling. And then, of course, you had in the last 2 games of the season the total inability to pick up the blitz. And here's what's absolutely insane, right? You have 3 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line and a 4th guy, Jordan Mailata, just finished as the #1 rated left tackle in the league by PFF stats. Okay. So you basically have 4 Pro Bowl offensive linemen and you can't figure out how to pick up the blitz. I mean, are you
Yeah.
serious? Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah.
And so what do you do? What do you do to pick up the blitz? We all know what to do. You play tighter personnel, 12, 13 personnel. You have a tight end in the chip. You put 2 backs in the backfield if you have to.
How
Right?
can you play 12 or 13 personnel? You're only allowed to have 11 on the field.
It's a term, it's
right.
a term in terms of how many people you have on the line.
I just don't want anybody thinking you don't know anything about football.
No, I do. It
Okay.
actually, I think you're the
All
one.
right.
But anyway, it
Got to
doesn't
take my shots, Schwab. Got to take my shots.
Here's the thing. It doesn't seem like it would be that hard to put together a plan. Okay, so my question becomes, and here's the thing that's just troublesome. There are a lot of reports saying that Jalen Hurts thought that what we were doing was we were abandoning the short passing game, and all we were doing was going for the deep, explosive plays. Right? Well, guess what happens when you're being blitzed and you're running deep explosive plays? That means you get sacked.
Yeah.
Or you run out of the pocket and go nowhere.
Yeah.
So my question is this, all right? If Nick Sirianni doesn't know defense, so he doesn't call the defensive plays, okay? If he doesn't call the offensive plays on offense, okay? And he didn't step in to call the offensive plays on offense when the offense was struggling. And he's not able to, his whole thing is it's his offense. He develops the game plan with the offensive coordinator, and he's unable to come up with an answer for the blitz in the last 6 games of the season. What is it exactly that he does well?
I can't answer that question.
You can't answer that. Now, granted, I think a lot of blame does go to Howie Roseman because Howie Roseman has been very successful with draft picks, with free agent acquisitions. This year, every free agent acquisition was a bomb. They didn't work. They didn't work this year, right?
Well, listen, DeAndre Swift. Well, that was a trade. Was that a trade?
Yeah, that was a trade. I mean, that was a good one. But
he had 1,049 yards rushing. Only 5 touchdowns, but
but you replace your 2 starting safeties with a backup safety from last year, and then just a rotation at the other safety spot.
And let me just read. Blankenship led the team in tackles with 113, and he led the team in interceptions with.
But let me tell you, I think the most overrated stat in all of football is tackles.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know why. Okay. Because it counts as a tackle, even if you tackle him 35 yards down the field. So
exactly. So bravo. You spent a lot of time trying to catch people, Reed Blankenship. and I saw plenty of times where you didn't catch anybody.
Yeah, right.
Look, I actually do kind of like Reed Blankenship. Like, I think Reed Blankenship is the kind of guy that, like, if he's like the second or third worst person on your defense, you probably have a really good defense.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but you need a star caliber, starting safety next to him, and then he's good. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I also think that the decision to bring back James Bradberry was a really bad one. They had a choice to make between CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's like I'd say he's a Pro Bowl caliber safety.
But they didn't dump him. He signed with another team.
Yeah, but they didn't give him the big money. They gave the big money to Bradberry.
Okay.
They basically said, we want our 2 best people in the secondary to be corners, and we'll fill in at safety. But they didn't recognize that Bradberry. Now, look, last year Bradberry was like the top-rated corner in the league. So I don't know what in the world happened to him this year.
So you're doing this after the fact.
Yeah, but you're supposed to know that. You're supposed to know you don't sign most corners, past the age of 30.
Right.
To long-term deals.
Yeah.
And he came back this year and he fell off a cliff and he was cooked. Right.
What do you think about this comment from Steve? I think you're too hard on the sack stats. They had one fewer sacks this year than last year. Now, last year they did have 4 guys with double-digit sacks.
Well, no, I don't know what he's talking about, because last year they like almost set a record. They had this like the second or the third most sacks of all time. They were way off it this year. I think it was something like they had 78 last year and they had like 40 this year or something like that. That's not right.
I don't know. I'm going to look it up while you continue to talk.
I can tell you right now, Brandon Graham had 11 last year. He had, I think, 3 this year. Josh Sweat had 11 last year. I think he had 6.5 this year. Oh, sacks given up by offense, he says. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. Well, yeah, and the other thing I was going to say along the lines of what Steve is talking about, they did have Pro Bowl players on the line and the highest rated guy. I don't think their line performed poorly. I actually don't think their offense.
Well, no, their offensive line is great, but even the best offensive line in the league is not going to be able to block 6 or 7 guys coming when every wide receiver has their back to the quarterback running 50 yards downfield.
Right.
That's why there was, and maybe it was the same amount of sacks, but let me put it this way: the sacks were worse this year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, what are they doing? Like, how can they not stop this? Well, that's because nobody's running a slant over the middle. And every time they do, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown go for 20 yards.
Right.
So it's those are some of the reasons why I say I like my feeling is sort of like this. I mean, I kind of feel like it's just my opinion. I just kind of feel like Sirianni was kind of exposed this year. Now, do I think Sirianni can possibly even get a team back to the Super Bowl? Yeah. But you know how? By having a really good offensive and defensive coordinator, because they're going to do most of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And Steve says they need a linebacker that'll help the cornerback and safety issues, and Riverboat Ron will fix that. Right. So you are in favor, though, that where we all started this was you asked me, would I fire Sirianni or not? I said, absolutely not. Where are you?
I would. And here's the other
typical Eagles fan.
Here's the other key piece to it, okay? And I think this is really important. The problem when your head coach is the CEO, meaning they don't call offensive or defensive plays, okay? The problem with that is then once you get a great play caller, you lose them pretty quickly because another team, scrounges them up. So like, let's just say, for example, that, Jim Bob Cooter comes in here, right? And, and he puts forth his best offensive coordinator, year ever. Right. Best performance. They're second rated offense in the league. And, you've got, AJ Brown close to 2,000 yards. DeAndre Swift goes for 1,000. Hurts is healthy the whole year and he goes crazy again next year. And now guess what? Now Jim Bob Cooter's going to coach Cleveland.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love how you pick Cleveland there. I think Stefanski would have something to say there, but yeah, it is tough in today's NFL. It's just tough because these guys get plucked and then you're starting all over.
Now, I mean, look, I'm not gonna look. My big, question and discord here is that I just don't know. Like, if he couldn't come up with answers over, a 2-month stretch, how are we to believe he's going to come up with answers next year? And then the other part of it is, and I really do believe this, like, I've never seen such poor tackling in my life in the last couple games. And to me, that's a want to thing.
Yes.
And like, look, look, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, Hassan Reddick, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, all those guys came out and said Nick Sirianni is a really good coach and we support him. Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
At the same time, I felt like I was looking at a team that sort of gave up at the first sign of trouble in each of the last couple games they were playing.
Right.
And I got to put that on the coach, the head coach.
I mean, you could see both sides of this argument, but I go back and I say Sirianni came into a team, took over the Eagles when they were kind of in a state of flux and a little bit of disarray. That the years they spent with Carson Wentz, of course, they did win a Super Bowl, but it was Foles that carried him through the end of the season. And then it was kind of like, yeah, but Wentz is our guy. And then I don't know what happened to that guy because he looked like he was great, but he did. He was.
I think the injury did him in. He couldn't play the same.
Probably true.
Yeah.
And then you have this state of flux and they draft Jalen Hurts to be behind him. And then they move on. And Sirianni, he made lemonade out of lemons. And this year was the year where he was served up a bunch of lemons again. And that is new OC, new DC. And it didn't work out. And that mid-season change to Patricia was a panic move. And I don't see Sirianni as being the kind of guy that panics. So I do think that was kind of from above.
Right,
you got to, and they didn't fire him. They just demoted him. And that causes a lot of problems too, because now they would have been better off firing Desai and sending him away, because now you've got Desai and you've got the egos involved. And I just think there was a lot of inconsistency in that locker room once that started to happen. Instead of letting Desai work through the problems, they panicked and they took a guy that used to be a decent offense or defensive coordinator and they threw him in there and he messed up the whole system.
Yeah. I mean, do you realize, but before the 49ers game, when they were 10-1, they had the 12th ranked defense in the league.
Right.
Not bad. And they plummeted all the way down.
30th.
You know what I mean? To be honest, think about it this way. Desai was at least showing you with the garbage that he was given that, you could win games. I mean, they held Tua and the Dolphins to 17 points.
Right.
Right. I mean, so I don't know. To be honest, I actually feel like the reason why they've kept Sirianni is because the front office knows it was their fault. I think it's hard to fire somebody when you were the ones behind the Desai to Patricia move. It's hard to fire somebody when Howie Roseman, you are the guy who had no plan at linebacker and safety.
Yeah.
Right. And made the bad Bradbury choice. It's hard to hold him responsible when, you could make an argument that that's equally as responsible.
And I also I also think that I just think they should have left Desai be the defensive coordinator. I mean, let him burn his own house down, and then at the end of the year you fire him and you move on. Or there was a time when, and there are lots of teams that do this. I mean, you look at a team, we'll use an NFC East competitor. You look at a team like the Commanders, they had Jack Del Rio for like 3 or 4 years. And his defenses underperformed. They had some big draft picks that didn't pan out. And they finally let him go this year, midway through the year, because they fell apart. They ended up 4-13. I mean, that's like a natural progression. This guy comes in, he was on the team the year before. He was a defensive assistant, right?
No, he was new to the team this year.
Oh, was he new to? Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. Steve says you have to allow your head coach to make mistakes and get better. Don't just fire them. Same mistakes next year can his ass. So,
well, that's
where I am. If they fall off a cliff next year, then he's lost the team. He's lost it. You move on. But give him a chance at redemption.
Okay. Well, there's one other thing that we didn't address. which is, and this also has to do with the reason why I would have let Sirianni go, is because there's an unprecedented level of talent at the head coaching position available. There's Vrabel, there's Belichick, there's Pete Carroll. I know he's old. There's Jim Harbaugh. I mean, that's an unprecedented level of talent. And to be honest, the guy that I actually like the most is Vrabel.
Yeah, well, let me break in there. You say Pete Carroll is 72. Bill Belichick is 71. So
right.
And Belichick has only so far interviewed with the Falcons twice and nowhere else. I mean, I wouldn't want Bill Belichick at this point, because the problem with having Belichick is that your expectations automatically go to 6 Super Bowls. Carroll, obviously, I think I'm always afraid, God forbid, Pete Carroll's going to have a heart attack and die on the sidelines. He gets so excited,
Right.
I like the Vrabel pick. He's a younger head coach. He's kind of old school, new school.
Right.
Harbaugh has interviewed with the Chargers twice.
And the Falcons twice.
And the Falcons, yeah. And I think Harbaugh is trying to bend Michigan over a barrel and threatening to leave.
No, you know what? I think he is going to leave. And I'll tell you what, somebody said something that really registered with me that I thought was really smart. And they were saying that this is part of why Nick Saban decided to hang it up this year. You realize now in college, with the transfer portal and the NIL agreements, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, you now have to recruit your own players every year.
Yeah.
So imagine how hard that would be. At least before, you got your players, and it was like, all right, well, if we're at Alabama, I mean, hey, if they're a great player, they'll be gone in 2 years. If they're not, if they're just good, we might get them for 3 or 4. Now it's like, I only have 1 year, and then I have to recruit them to stay again.
Yes.
And that's just awful and exhausting.
That's what I've said about the transfer portal and NIL all along. I am completely for adult athletes to be able to make money from their image and sponsorship. So you play college ball, but you're 18 years old and over. Listen, you're making these especially, well, you're making almost, football is a big money generator for lots of colleges, not just the best ones. So you're making these schools a lot of money, a lot more money than you're actually getting in like the free education. And that's, that's spotty at best, because some of them never even take advantage of the free education. And I've always thought that the transfer portal along with NIL, it to me, it is destroying college sports. It's turning it into another competitive professional league. And I agree with you. So Harbaugh was 44-19 as the Niners coach. And I do think that but I don't see Harbaugh going to Philly. Well, obviously that's not going to happen this year, because they're pretty much have said Sirianni is going to be back. So of course he's going to go out on the West Coast and enjoy the sunshine.
Right. He'll be the Chargers head coach.
Did Harbaugh go to college? Where did he go to school? Stanford?
He went to college at Michigan.
That's right. He's in Michigan.
And then he was the quarterback of the Bears.
The Bears, yeah. And then the Colts.
Right.
When they were calling him, what were they calling him? The comeback, maybe Steve will remember. What did they call Jim Harbaugh? Captain Comeback. They called him Captain Comeback.
You sure about that?
You don't remember that? Yeah, that might have been before you were living.
I think you're thinking of like Doug Flutie, maybe.
No. Steve, chime in here if you're still watching. Captain Comeback, yeah, because he came back against the Steelers at one point. There was one year when he was on the Colts where he came from behind. He had a lot of come from behind victories, and that year they called him loser in the AFC Championship game. That's right. They almost won. It was like a last minute Hail Mary that they almost caught or something. But anyway, I digress. So
all right.
Let's do this real quick, and let's
wrap up the Eagles, because we'll have a lot more to talk about next week after the press conference and maybe some coordinator hires.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you three things. Okay. I want you to grade Jalen Hurts.
Ooh, it's a tough
grade
one.
His season.
I'll go B-.
Yeah, I would give him a solid B. Okay. I want you to grade the offense as a whole.
B.
Yep, I would do the same thing. And grade the defense. It's the easy one.
F.
Yep. I would
I guess, you know what, I'll give them a D, because they did start 10-1.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would give them a B for the first half of the year, basically, and then probably an F for the second half, and that rounds out into like a C-. So I'll give them a C- overall.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thanks for listening to us and watching us, of course, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. It's the Sports Porch Philadelphia. We drop this podcast right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Please subscribe, leave a review. We would love that. Moving on, page 2 tonight is the Sixers, and I did just see something as I'm watching ESPN up here. First time Embiid and Wanabayana Banana are facing each other is tonight at in 20 minutes.
All right, cool, exciting.
So let's talk Sixers.
So Sixers, look, having a good year. I mean, pretty much as expected. I think the new coach, Nick Nurse, has kind of breathed some life into the team. Like, feel like they're having fun again. They play a style that is kind of more conducive to players enjoying themselves. They're just they're moving the ball and everybody's involved, and it's not as much the 1 and 2 man show that you had with Harden and with Joel Embiid. Now it's you have Maxey emerging as a star, and then you've got a ton of good role players around him and Embiid. Embiid's pretty much playing at a historical level, but that's really not anything new. I mean, he was the MVP last year. He'll be in it again this year. Probably him and Jokic. One of them will win it again, or maybe Giannis. And so right now, if I'm looking here, they're third place in the East, 28-13, 4 games back of Boston, a half game back in Milwaukee. If you look at the entire league, they have the 5th best record in all of basketball. So it's Boston, Minnesota, Milwaukee, Oklahoma City, and then the Sixers, and then right behind the Sixers are the Denver Nuggets and the Clippers. So look, they're gonna be somewhere between. I mean, I don't see them, getting the 1 seed over Boston. Probably not even over Milwaukee. They'll be somewhere. They'll probably be somewhere between the 3 and 4 seed. I'm gonna guess. Now, the interesting thing, believe it or not, what's most interesting about the Sixers is really what's happening not on the floor as compared to what's happening on the floor, because the trade deadline is approaching. And the big question is, do you make a big addition at the trade deadline, or do you say, let's just ride it out, with the team gelling nicely at the moment, and see where it can take them? Can it take them to a championship? Probably not, but you never know. I mean, like the Miami Heat were like the 8th seed last year, or like had a play-in game and they made it to the championship, right? So you never know. But the answer would be probably not. What it really comes down to is the Sixers next year. Now, Tobias Harris will come off the books, and he's a max player. So next year, the Sixers will have one of the most biggest amounts of money available in free agency. So they can really add like an A-list free agent next year. Now, the question is, do you want to add one this year by trading off a couple of marginal pieces and a couple first-round picks? So
It's going
that's
to depend on where they are.
the question. Now there's a guy who plays for Atlanta, teamed up with Trae Young. His name is DeJounte Murray. And I really like him a lot. He's a young guy. He's like 26, 27. He's a point guard, which kind of fits the Sixers because it lets Maxey play the shooting guard position, a little bit more. That's more his natural position. And this guy, DeJounte Murray, man, he's got ice in his veins. He had like 2 game-winning three-pointer buzzer beaters as the clock expired. This past week. I would really love to see them try to get him, simply because I still think one of the weaknesses of the Sixers, look, I know it's crazy to say being that you have an MVP, but when it comes down to like a last second shot, it's not exactly easy for the big guys to do that. They get 4 guys on them, and and then of course if he puts the ball on the floor, somebody's going to steal it. And then Maxey, who's awesome, but same kind of thing with him. It's kind of hard for him to get that last minute shot without it being too far away, like step back three, because he's small. So taller guards can guard him. And I think this DeJounte Murray is kind of like that perfect fit, like that 6'5", 6'6" guard who can get that last shot, make his own shot. I'd really love to see them acquire him, but I don't know if they're going to do anything or not, but we'll see.
So 28-13 right now. They're on a 5-game win streak.
Mm-hmm.
Where were they at this time last year? I want to say it was somewhere similar.
Probably was similar. Probably. I mean, probably. I mean, actually, maybe not. I think they actually did get off to like a worse start last year. It might have been like they might have been like 12-12 last year or something like that at one point.
Yeah,
they're actually probably a little bit better. But we'll see. It's all going to come down to trade deadline and what happens.
Great point, Mark. Even Jordan had Paxton and Kerr. Right. But Jordan also had Jordan. Okay, moving on here. And again, the Philadelphia Sports Porch, the podcast is on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Subscribe, leave us a review. And page 3, the Flyers. What the hell is going on?
Well,
how is it that they are doing so well?
The Flyers may actually be good. So right now they are in second.
Surprise. You know who said that, right?
I don't.
Gomer Pyle. Gomer Pyle.
All right. Not my thing.
No,
so
Steve knows Gomer Pyle.
The Flyers are in second place in the Metro, 25, 16, and 6 for 56 points. They are just 4 points behind the first place Rangers. And they have a 5-point lead in terms of them being out of a playoff spot. So that's really like a 2.5 game lead, into a playoff spot. If you look at just total standings of the league, not bad. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They've got the 8th most points in the league out of, I guess, 32 teams. Maybe it's 30. I don't know. So they're having.
You're the hockey expert. You should know how many teams are in the friggin' league.
I don't know how many teams are in the frickin' league.
All right. Well, next week.
Next week I'll have that for you.
You'll have the research done. Okay.
Yes, I'll have it done. But yeah, nice. Look, it's been unexpected. Now, true, they had won 5 games in a row prior to this weekend. They had a back-to-back and they lost both games. One was against 32 teams, Steve says. One was against a very good team, Colorado. And the other was against a not so good team, the Senators, of which they had a 3-1 lead going into the third, and they blew that game, lost 4-3. And from what I've read, because I wasn't able to watch that game, apparently the Flyers really looked gassed in that game. So I think the back-to-back, especially with a real fast team like Colorado, really had them. Yeah. So what Steve is getting as the Flyers have played 47 games, and like some teams have only played like 44 games, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
But look, what you're basically looking at here is you're looking at a combination of factors. You're looking at having a really good coach that plays a really good system. You're looking at having two really good goaltenders. So when you have to use your backup goaltender, it's not like it's like a loss is coming. You can win that game. Actually, the backup goaltender has been better than the star goaltender so
Then
far,
Carter Hart.
Carter Hart, which is interesting because it makes me wonder, might Carter Hart be tradable because how well Sam Ersson has played? And then, the rest of it is you just have a lot of really good, well, I shouldn't say really good. What you have is a lot of first round picks that are all starting to have really good seasons for the first time together.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a few
Right.
times, where it's kind of like you've got these younger players, and I think hockey is a better team or a better sport for this. You've got these younger players, your first round picks, and it takes a few years to start to get that chemistry together, and especially in hockey. So yeah, maybe it's all coming together at the right time.
Yeah, but I will tell you, I mean, like the style that the Flyers play, I mean, the stuff that you'll look at, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with outcomes of every game. Since Steve he's in some pain. A
He's
Penguins fan, seeing the
he
Flyers
says the
get better.
Flyers are a good team. Yeah,
Yeah, but what's interesting is it's the first time since 2010, which was a year in which the Flyers went to the Stanley Cup. First since 2010 that they've had 9 consecutive games where they've had over 35 shots in a game.
right.
So they're getting a lot of pucks on net.
Yep.
And the other part of it is defensively. They're very high up there in terms of blocks. And there will be games. It's not every game, but there will be games where I will look at I'll look at the game cast and it'll be like second period, right? And I'll look at the shots and it'll be like the Flyers have 21 shots and their opponent has 7. And I'm
Right.
like, holy moly, so they're playing good defense and a good style, which is attributable to Tortorella. So hey, look, it's still though, it's halfway through the season about. I still say it's kind of early. I mean, really, like you're 2.5, you're a 5-game losing streak from being out of the playoffs, probably.
Right.
But they do tend to keep winning, and each time they have a blip where they lose 2 or maybe 3, they seem to come back with like a 5-game win streak. So we'll have to see what happens, but it is nice to actually be paying attention to Flyers hockey again.
Yep.
It's been a long time, and it is welcome.
And Konechny leads the team with 22 goals and 42 points. And Farabee, he leads with 22 assists. And these are names. I mean, Konechny, people know that name, but right now it's kind of a lot of no names. And I'm sure if they continue
no names outside of the hockey world.
Well, exactly.
Because Farabee was a first round pick. Konechny was a first round pick.
You know what I mean by that. What I mean is there's no superstars really on the team yet.
Right.
And there's somebody's going to emerge, and some people are starting to emerge. And if they finish this year with a nice run in the playoffs, then you're building something special.
And I have to tell you too, like, the crazy thing was that remember when I was over your house the other night for that, we did the Sports Porch in person, and I was like, what in the world? They traded Cutter Gauthier. He was one of their pride. I'll tell you what, man, they got this Drysdale guy, and wow, dude, he is good. He's a right-handed shot defenseman. He was like the 6th overall pick a couple of years back. I'm telling you, man, he is good on the power play. He's basically, pointing the top line power play, and he makes a difference, and he's got a good shot. So they're loving what they see in him. Interesting on that Cutter Gauthier, this is one of those prima donnas who, decides he wants to play where he wants to play.
Right.
Apparently, he had given the Flyers a list of teams that he would play for.
Okay.
And there was a report that came out that about half of the teams that he wanted to play for weren't interested because they didn't like his character of how he was handling being drafted by the Flyers.
It's funny how in hockey they still have those standards. It doesn't seem like they have those standards in the NBA, the NFL, or even Major League Baseball anymore. And that being said,
that's it. That's a wrap.
Yeah. Well, I want to do just a couple things here real quick. Okay. First of all, that was the wrong thing to put up there. I want to thank everybody for listening and encourage you to follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia podcast on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you get your podcasts. But so far this year, Flyers, give them a grade. Whole team, give them a grade this year. This is easy.
A.
Yes, absolutely. How about the Sixers? Give them a grade so far.
B+.
B+. I'd give them an A-.
Sure, A-.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's right on the fence between an A- and a B+.
Absolutely. And speaking of MLB, pitchers and catchers report in just a matter of days.
Woo!
So we're going to be firing that bucket up again. And I have a feeling we're going to get a lot more Phillies reports this year.
Yeah, another year of Aaron Nola. God rest. Oh God,
he's still alive, Mark.
Another year of Aaron Nola.
I think he's going to surprise you this year.
I mean, look, I know he's good. I just, he's just not my favorite.
Well, he frustrated you. He's frustrated you.
He's frustrated.
Absolutely. All righty, boys. All right. Thank you for listening to the Sports Porch Philadelphia, of course, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. And tuning in live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, of course. And next week, we will have an announcement. We will have an announcement about the Sports Porch Philadelphia. Yeah, I think you'll all enjoy it, and we can't wait. News. After that, all I got to say is I am your technical director, and I am out.
And I am the Grand Schwabini, and I make good picks.